Lisa, how much weight have you lost since we first met?
Since we first met, I lost 21 pounds.
21 pounds. How does it feel saying that?
It's pretty surreal. Um, I didn't realize it was that much until you made me do the math. And that's a big deal.
It's a really big
Yeah.
deal. It's a really big deal for someone of your body weight. We've
Right,
got folks
exactly.
losing, not that it should be a comparison game, not that I want you to be competitive with my other clients, but we've got folks losing 30 pounds, 40 pounds in the program. But for someone of your weight, like that's an immense chunk of your starting point, isn't it? That's
Yeah,
an immense chunk of your body that's disappeared since we first met.
yeah. And I think because
Yeah.
we're finishing, I I've achieved it. I'm now done losing weight, and so I feel like that's a huge achievement. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, and we had a great kind of final coaching call the other day, talking about sort of the transition to maintenance and whatnot. And I think that's important. I think
yeah,
there'll be a lot of people at home watching this thinking, I know how to lose the weight, Ryan. I've done it myself, at periods, and I've read the books and I've seen your videos and other videos online. I'm just really fearful about my ability to maintain, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later on. But for full transparency, if we can, let's talk about how that breaks down. I've got the numbers here, so I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but I've got the numbers as a backup plan. Do you remember how much you lost in the first? Because we've done 24 weeks, so we've done 6 months now almost. Do you remember how much you lost in the first 12 weeks versus the second 12 weeks?
I think it wasn't it 12 the first 12 weeks and then 9 the second?
Yeah, spot on.
12 and
Yeah,
9.
and
Yeah.
I think this is important. With all these speedy weight loss stories on the internet, I think people get, really down on themselves when they maybe appear to have slower weight loss than that. And
Yeah.
whilst we're at the end of this process and we can say, yeah, 21 pounds, that's absolutely awesome for someone of your frame, like the numbers, maybe they don't sound, well, I don't want to be patronizing, but to some people, they won't sound that sexy.
And
21
I
pounds
get
in
it.
24 weeks, that doesn't, yeah. So how do you feel about that? Did that ever play on your mind?
No, it was actually affirming when because you gave me the feedback, like, I would have expected more weight loss. And I'm like, yeah, I would have too. But this is the pattern that when I tried to do this on my own, this was the same rate.
Mm,
Because I did lose weight on my own. I think we're going to get into that, but I did lose weight on my own and it was the same pace. So it
yeah,
was a little bit like, okay, this is just me and that's okay. And it made me, because this wasn't my first time losing weight, it made me more patient. And I think being, if I were, I think I told you a lot in the beginning, if I were on my own, I would have just given up. But knowing that you had done like all the calculations for me and you had, like, you told me what to do, so I knew I was doing the right thing. It just didn't go at a specific rate that we would have wanted it to. And so I felt really secure that, okay, we're doing the right thing. We just need to keep going. And this is just me, and that's okay.
yeah. And I think that's a really sort of mature way of handling it, if I can say, not to sound patronizing, but it is. A lot of people, they can't deal with that. There is a certain expectation about speed of weight loss in their mind from some crazy extreme diet they've maybe tried in the past, or because their friend is losing 8 pounds in 2 weeks on keto. And so that's in their mind. They've got these benchmarks. And, this process is trial and error. And hopefully, looking back, I didn't make a big deal out of the speed of weight loss to you because that could be quite disempowering, like having a terrible reaction to it. But I think an honest conversation about, hey, there is something slow going on here. It does seem kind of harder for you than other folks at your body weight and sort of demographic, like height and age, starting point to get the weight off. It seems like it comes a little bit easier. Yours is marginally on the slow side, but we need to call it what it is. We need to accept it. We need to not fight that or stress about it the entire time we're working
Right.
together because that's not going to be productive. And that's why I think it's really important to break down, hey, look, you lost 21 pounds. Full disclosure, you've done it in 6 months, and here's how it breaks down. The first couple of months, you lost 12 pounds. In the last 3 months, you lost 8 or 9-ish pounds. And so you can see the steady slowing there, but it's not much. And when we look at it in review and we can say, yeah, 21 pounds lost, it feels really good. But when you kind of break down the numbers, there might be people that go, is that really worth 6 months worth of work? Which we'll get onto if it
Absolutely
was.
it is.
But of course it is.
Yeah.
But I think it's worth breaking that down for transparency. And that's the whole slim and sustain thing, right? We're not in a hurry with this. We could have done this more aggressively. I could have given you an 800-calorie diet. Let's not do that. We know where
Yeah.
that goes. That's the antithesis of everything I've discovered myself and the whole slim and sustain philosophy. What I think makes your numbers particularly impressive, though, is the fact you've had one hell of a roller coaster ride with regards to your personal health over the past few years. And this isn't your first rodeo with weight loss either. You've been up and down the scales between your four, let's just pause on that for a second, 4 pregnancies. And then last year, you had treatment for breast cancer. A lot of people, Lisa, that have just given up, that have packed it in, that have given up on trying to get the body of their dreams in those circumstances, and kind of understandably so, I think. What kept you coming back? What kept you believing in yourself?
Um, yeah. I I was overweight starting in high school. I the heaviest weight that I remember seeing on the scale was 220. And then I lost weight, gained weight all through the pregnancies, like you said. And I lost weight after my youngest was 2, and I was down to like 140. And I maintained that for a few years. And then with cancer treatment, I had breast cancer. And with the chemotherapy, they make you take steroids. And so that those steroids, they make you gain weight. And so at the end of treatment, I was overweight, uncomfortable, bald, and really wanted to lose weight to prevent that reoccurrence. I have a high reoccurrence rate with my cancer. It's triple negative breast cancer. So I really wanted to lower that rate. The studies show that if you at least go back to your previous weight before cancer treatment, it reduces your risk of cancer. But I knew, back to your question, I knew I could do it. I'm a cancer fighting mom of 4, military wife. Like, I knew I could do it. I just needed help. And there's
Mm.
nothing wrong with needing help. That doesn't mean I'm broken. I couldn't do it on my own, but I knew I could do it.
You knew you were capable of doing
Yeah,
it with the right, I don't know, assistance, guidance, accountability, support, etc.,
right.
etc. Yeah.
I'd done it
Okay.
before. I could
You've done
do
it
it.
before. And
Yeah.
at 140, that lowest point previously, it's worth saying that's not as low as you are now. But you
No.
still, in your mind, there's still evidence of I can lose weight and I can keep it off. Okay, it wasn't as low as I wanted in the past, but I think that does give you some confidence. Like, hey, there's almost a this is figurative. There's a muscle memory to losing weight, to whereby when you know the process, you do have a little bit more confidence the next time you try and do it, I find. So I wonder if that was sort of lingering for you from the previous attempt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Previously I did like a McDougall-style,
Mm.
and that worked at the time. It was right for the time. My kids were younger. I was more at home, but like I think I'm jumping to the next question. But
Well,
go ahead.
but that's an important point. It's like when you came back, and I do have questions about the chemo and whatnot, so we'll switch back to that as well. But when you did decide, okay, I'm at a healthy-ish stage now in terms of my recovery, excuse me, or let's say healthy enough to really focus on the weight loss. Why didn't you just go back to what you tried before? Why slim and sustain? Not to sound self-indulgent, but why me? Why did you reach out to me then?
Yeah, McDougall, the McDougall-style worked at the time. I was at home. My kids were younger. Um, I'm not, my kids are I'm older, I'm busier, I'm out of the house a lot, and I didn't I couldn't do it. Couldn't focus on it on my own anymore. Where when my kids were younger, I was at home, I was able to put in that focus And so I had followed you for a while, and I just came to realize, like, if my daughter needed help with math, I would hire her a tutor. My
Yeah.
oldest daughter, she had trouble with science. I found lectures, and I almost felt like I was hiring a tutor in something I needed help in. I didn't feel any shame in it. I felt really excited. And so I had followed you, and I liked the sustainability part because I had lost weight before. So I knew losing the weight is only, it's a big chunk of it, but learning to maintain the weight loss is what is essential. Because anybody can lose weight. Not everybody can leave it off, can keep it off.
Mm, of
Um,
course. What are the big parallels now? You've worked with me for, almost 6 months. What are the big parallels or comparisons between the McDougall-ized approach and then sort of slim and sustain? Do you notice any major differences between the two eating styles? Because there's a lot of overlap, but have you noticed?
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of McDougall followers, they really emphasize potatoes. And I was convinced, starting with you, that I was gonna have to eat gobs of potatoes. I was just convinced that, like, that was what we were gonna have to do. um, in the first few weeks, I was almost waiting for you to be like, okay, well, let's do some potatoes. Like, it was just ingrained in me that that was gonna happen. And so you had the options of, like, almost every meal of some sort of fat. And I remember being like, hey now, like, it's not gonna work.
Yeah.
um, yeah. So that was the biggest thing. Um, I felt like I had more complete meals with,
Complete in what sense?
like, it wasn't just potatoes and vegetables.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, which in fairness is not what McDougall promotes, but that's all what a lot of McDougall followers end up doing. I think his
Right. That's why I
advice
want to
gets
qualify it.
misconstrued.
Right. I
Yeah,
want to qualify
yeah,
it as just followers will go that way.
understood. Yeah, understood. So a little bit more fat, not so much emphasis on potatoes. And yeah, with the fat thing, it's like I have my female clients, especially on sort of more 15 to 20% of calories from fat, which is, it's worth stressing. It's still a low fat diet, but the amount of people that message me and kind of when they see the meal plan or in week 1 or 2 and say, Ryan, can I really eat
Are
avocado
you
toast for
sure?
breakfast? That
Yeah.
seems like cheating. Is this really going to work because of everything they've heard about fat? And I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a calorie issue. And so as long as your calories over the day are in check, you're going to lose weight regardless of the split of macronutrients. That doesn't mean I recommend a keto diet, like a really high fat diet. I still think fat should be on the low side, but there's lots of important nutrients in those healthy fat sources. And I think they do contribute to a feeling of satisfaction. And
Yeah.
there's also the protein element as well. Like McDougall recommends lots of beans, but when I see his followers posting on Instagram, I see lots of beanless and lentil-less meals. And like you say, just a plate of, more than 50-50 plate, just potatoes and some veggies. And I agree with you, that doesn't feel truly complete. So do you think that extra level of satisfaction that you could have with meals made the process feel more sustainable? I think that's kind of what you're implying, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Mm,
I couldn't envision eating potatoes and vegetables only for the rest of my life.
yeah.
I know people
Doesn't feel
do it.
fun, does it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
God bless them, but it's just not something that I could see myself doing. I don't feel like that's sustainable with my lifestyle, with my family. It's just not sustainable.
Mm,
So I I was almost convinced, okay, I'm gonna have to eat potatoes to lose weight, but then hopefully I won't gain it back when I start eating my regular food again.
mm,
Where this with your meals, I feel like I can I can keep doing this the rest of my life,
mm.
you know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the intentionality behind it. So I'm glad you felt that way. Good. Otherwise, it wouldn't be slim and sustain, would it? If it was
Hmm.
felt like something that I'm just doing this for the weight loss, but I don't really like it. I'm just eating all of these potatoes and eliminating all the healthy fats from my diet just for weight loss. That doesn't feel like it can necessarily easily transition into what you do after that. How can I actually make this stick after that? So good. I'm glad you had that feeling. I've got to go back to the cancer, if I may. And I think you were suggesting earlier that hearing those statistics on relapse rates and whatnot, and the cancer coming back, that almost, you didn't say these words, but I think that almost scared you into, I've got to get control of this weight issue again. I've gained all this weight during the keto, from both the steroids, but then to perhaps leaning into a little bit more emotional eating. Again,
Yep.
very understandably in that time. So I've got to get control of this. Do you think in a strange way that health scare, well, not a strange way, but that health scare was a motivator then to kind of come back strong and hard with the weight loss? I've got to push myself here.
Yeah, definitely. It was, but it was also like, it's also a realization that what am I waiting for? Um,
Right.
so there was the health side of it in the body weight way. There
Mm,
was also the like kind of realizing your mortality, like what am I waiting for?
mm,
This is what I've always wanted to hit a certain number. I've never gotten there.
mm,
Why wait anymore? And then a little bit of like I can do this. I know I can do this. I've done
mm.
the hardest things I've ever done in my life before. I can do this. I've walked around with a bald head. Like I, you know,
I can handle this weight loss
yeah.
thing. That's
Yeah,
trivial. What?
like
Yeah, a bit of discipline. Yeah, that's fine.
yeah, like
Yeah,
I can do that and I want to do this.
yeah.
So I want to feel better. I didn't feel, even though I wasn't that overweight, um, compared to population,
Sure.
I I was overweight enough that I didn't feel comfortable in my clothes. I wasn't happy when I looked in the mirror. Like it felt like something that was undone. And why leave it undone? Let's finish it.
Yeah. Well, it's a personal choice as to obviously how much that bothers you, or a personal feeling as to how much that bothers you, and it did bother you. And there might have been others that would have been satisfied with it, or like I said earlier on, there might have been others who were very sort of understandably, again, empathetic towards themselves. Like, hey, look at what you've just been through. This is not the time to, try and charge down the scales again, or create any sort of stress or strictness with themselves again. But you were like, no, no, I feel like I want to do this. I actually want to do this, and this is going to be beneficial for me. And I feel, again, you didn't use these words, but I imagine out of control. And that's a feeling people don't like. It's not just about the weight, it's like the lack of control they have around their food and whatnot. And seeing the scale creep up again after 2 years maintaining at 140. That can be quite terrifying, not to speak for you. And so it's like, no, I want to feel that control again. I want to close this chapter, close this weight loss loop finally
Yeah.
get there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did the so that's how you turned. I'm putting it in a very sort of cliched way, but that's how you turned a negative into a positive. Did you find that going through chemo, going through cancer, obviously more largely, that actually that led to some negative sort of self-talk with regards to your personal health and your body? You're talking about how you spun things into a positive and got really motivated to lose some weight, but were there any negative effects mentally?
Yeah. Um, like when I remember the week before I started chemotherapy and like knowing that I had chemo first and I was gonna have radiation and then surgery. I thought I was kissing goodbye any resemblance of being attractive, looking young, looking healthy. I thought it would
Mm,
be gone. Um, and so one thing that happened was I started losing the weight with you and I started regaining vibrancy post cancer, just looking healthier again and started losing weight. And um, you had to work with me because I was like, wait, I'm feeling kind of vain. Like I'm looking in the mirror and I'm like, hey, I look pretty good. And so I didn't know what to do with that. Like I didn't know what to do with that feeling. And so I felt like I was coming to you and you were like my priest. And I was like, I'm kind of confessing I have some vanity now. And we talked about it more and I realized I'm just surprised. I'm not vain. I'm just surprised to look healthy again. I'm surprised to feel attractive again. I
Do
didn't
you,
think
do you,
I would have that.
sorry, because you were mid-flow on something really personal. Yeah. Do you feel like at some maybe conscious or subconscious level that you almost didn't deserve to feel that way about yourself? I remember this conversation, but you didn't deserve to feel whatever insert word was, but beautiful, attractive, pretty, fit. You think you didn't deserve that being a cancer survivor?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure if I wasn't deserving it. I just really thought it wouldn't be my future.
Right.
I really thought it was gone. And so,
Yeah.
um,
So when it came, you did accept it, but it was weird. So it wasn't a deserving question. It was but there was some sense of, oh, I just didn't expect this. This is
yeah,
weird to experience again.
it feels
You didn't know how to
uncomfortable.
reconcile it. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
it felt uncomfortable and like I didn't know, yeah, I didn't know what to do with it.
Mm. Do you
Yeah.
think in another chapter, let's say, if you would if you had to deal with that feeling, do you think that might have stopped you from losing weight in a strange way?
It might have, we did talk about it. I really think it might have sabotaged me a bit
Mm,
if I didn't have you to like kind of center me. Like, no, what you're feeling is not wrong because in my head I was like, wait, this feels uncomfortable. So uncomfortable
mm.
must mean wrong. And you were like, no, this is not wrong. We're on a good path. And I was just realizing, you're right, it's not wrong. It's different. It's
Yeah,
unfamiliar.
and we just needed to explain it, didn't we? We just needed to
Yeah.
say, look, here's why you have this feeling. Here's why. And no bloody wonder with what you've been through. No wonder it's like this feels slightly alien to you
Yeah.
and slightly uncomfortable. Yeah. We talked about, having that little bit of fat in the meals and not having to eat quite so many potatoes. How did you find the food on the
Um,
program? How did you
I've
find
been
the meals?
vegan. Yeah, I've been vegan a long time, so I everything was familiar to me. I knew how to cook tofu. I knew how to um everything looked familiar and
Mm,
everything was good. But I also knew like you were like add spices, whatever whatever spices you want, and
mm,
I knew how to do that. I'm a home cook, so nothing
yeah,
tasted bland to me.
sure.
But also like I I asked you for chocolate and you gave me chocolate. Like
Yeah,
I I asked you for a burger and you gave me a burger.
healthy versions, obviously. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So you could have the stuff you wanted, basically. Yeah, in
yeah.
some form at least. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a cookie, like, but it was, yeah,
Mm,
you could add like, what is it, it was a half a tablespoon to your smoothie of cocoa powder.
yeah.
Yeah, but that's enough. Like, you could add a
Mm,
half a teaspoon to your cereal and it's delicious. So I
mm.
know feel deprived the like you gave me peanut butter and avocados, like,
So
and
what
like
about? No, please finish. Sorry.
you gave me all my favorite foods. Like
Mm.
yeah, yeah, sorry.
Well, it makes the whole process of losing weight so much easier when you can eat lots of your favorite foods, or at least to the point, to the point you're making, make lots of meals that have at least your favorite flavors. Like, I don't need chocolate, I just need something chocolatey, hence the
Yes.
cocoa powder.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important distinction, right? So how were cravings then
Um,
with that in mind?
how are
The fact you still got
cravings?
to eat lots of your favorite foods, were there still any cravings? Let's be real about this one.
Mm, were there any cravings? Not often. My problem was, um, which you were very patient with me. My problem was always that I always had kid food around me.
Yeah.
I'm always cooking all the time. Like I make all my family's meals. So I always had food around me, getting them, crackers, making them homemade Rice Krispie treats or cookies, like all
Mm,
healthy, like whole food, plant-based mostly, but it's all around me. So I didn't really have like I didn't feel the only things I felt tempted were the literally the things in front of me.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I
Well,
had a nibbly problem, but those are the things that I had to overcome because those are literally my obstacles. People may have other obstacles. Like I'm not tempted
but
by,
let's talk about that specifically. It's really good you didn't have cravings, but there was some sort of circumstantial eating. Let's say it's around me. I'm preparing stuff for the kids. I'll have a nibble on this. I'll have a munch of this. And 9 times out of 10, you resisted and you overcame. But we had some really transparent conversations about little bouts where the nibbles and the grazing was sort of coming in again. How did you get control of that? How did you overcome that?
and I think the accountability was a big thing. Like knowing I would have to tell you,
Yeah.
I respect you. So I was incredibly honest.
Mm,
And I respected the program too. So I was really honest. Um, but there was something you said from the very beginning. You have to differentiate that this is your food and this is their food. And their food is
mm,
good for them. They're growing. They need the nut butters. They need all of the stuff that they need. They
yeah.
need those calories. I don't. Like this is the right food for me. That's the right
Hmm.
food for them. And um those are the things that I kept thinking was like that this
Mm,
is the food that they need and I'm happy to provide that for them.
mm,
And proud that they eat it. Like they eat really healthy and I'm really happy for them. It's
mm.
just their version of healthy is for a growing rate. I
Yes,
don't need
understood.
to grow anymore.
Sure, understood. We're trying to put you in that all important calorie deficit, and you've got your meal plan, and you've got your foods, and in your meal plan, you've got a certain combination of ingredients and foods and meals there that will actually allow you to feel more full for a certain calorie point.
Yeah.
And you were talking about lots of sort of more calorically dense foods, which are still in your plan. If you notice, we talked about the nut butter, we
Yeah.
talked about the fat sauces. So you've got some higher calorie foods, but they're in certain combinations that they'll be paired with something more voluminous or something more fibrous, so you still feel full eating them. And the problem when you start to graze on high calorie stuff is, do you feel that full really? You're just nibbling, you're just grazing, all of a sudden you've eaten 100 calories, 120 calories.
Yeah. Because you kind of like dissociate a little bit. So like when I'm sitting and eating my meal that like is on plan, I'm not disassociating. I'm present with it. I'm
Mm,
enjoying it. And then with the grazing, it's not mindless, but it's automatic. And so
yes.
changing that, like that's not going to be automatic anymore.
Yeah. So you didn't say this, but bringing awareness to this habit. Well, I realize I have this kind of mindless grazing problem. I need to call that out so I actually
Yeah.
can see it the next time I start to put food in my mouth. So some awareness there is really important, I think.
Yeah.
Mm. Okay, I think this is good advice for people with a similar problem. Um, Satisfaction wise, did you ever feel hungry?
Um, there in the earlier weight loss, in the probably the earlier weeks, the early
Mm,
12 weeks, there were times of day, especially
hmm.
like during points of my cycle when I would definitely get hungrier.
Mm,
And there was like a few tweaks that I found helped me not only lose weight, it seemed it seemed to lose I lose lost weight quicker this way, but also to help with that fullness is I would just switch. I would do breakfast, dinner, and then lunch,
hmm.
and that helped me a lot for the afternoon. So
Hmm.
like dinner meaning my higher calorie meal
Yep.
was at lunchtime, and that helped me a lot. Um,
Yep.
because the afternoon my caffeine's gone down, my coffee has gone down, like I'm more exhausted with the kids, like it's been a longer
Hmm.
day in the afternoon. They're all getting munchy and I'm in the kitchen. And so it seemed
It's
if I
better if you're
was,
full. It's
yeah,
better
it's
if you're
better if I'm
feeling full.
full.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, less risk. And yeah, for those at home, I let my clients switch the lunches and the dinners, because the dinners are always a higher calorie option because that's what works for most people. But we're talking about an exception to the rule here, clearly, whereby for you it worked better to switch the two and have
Yeah.
the lunches, many of which are kind of very dinner friendly,
Oh,
typical
yeah.
dinner friendly
Yeah.
recipes anyway.
Easy.
But it became easier to have a slightly smaller meal, in the evening as opposed to at the middle of the day.
Yeah. And I felt a lot of freedom in the flexibility. In the beginning, though, I had to have that fuller dinner
Right,
because if you remember, I was in the habit of way overeating dinner
right.
when we first started. I would
Yeah.
eat and eat and eat and know I was full, but I kept eating. And like we ended up realizing it was like decompression eating.
Yes.
And so in the beginning, that was so
Sorry, can you explain what you
necessary.
mean by that? Because I know what you mean, but people at home will
Yeah.
be like, "What? What's that term?" Yes.
Yeah. And
You
so
mean in an
like,
emotional sense, right? Yeah.
yeah, like, yeah, like for my emotional eating, it was, um, like it was decompression. So I would come home, from a social event
Hmm.
and I noticed I would just immediately go for a cookie or treat or something that I had in the house that was sweet, whether it was like the kids, snack bars or just something, a bowl of cereal or something.
Mm.
And I, with working with the emotional eating with you, I learned like this just the simple thing of like what am I feeling when I'm
Mm.
reaching for this, what am I feeling? And I remember I felt vulnerable. I was feeling like exposed when I was social. And so like it would be like I would grab that because I was home and I felt safe again. And like
Hmm.
that was what I wanted to
Helped you
do.
calm, helped you
It helped me
relax.
calm down.
Apparently, yeah, or
Yeah.
apparently, or that was at least the association, the
That was
the thought process.
dissociation. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
understood.
so like just
So
that
if I
like
get, no, sorry.
no, you go, you go.
But going back to the previous point, then, if I'd given you in week one a really small dinner, you'd have
Yeah.
been just linking back to the previous point. You'd be like, "Heck no, this is not going to work, right? This is not
No.
going to work." So, but at some point, you thought, "Okay, there's a little bit of hunger creeping in the afternoons. You've got the afternoon snack anyway. That's worth saying, but it might work better for me if we just switch the two." And it did.
Yeah.
So good for you.
Yeah,
But
because there's
generally,
times of the month like with my cycle, it was not working to wait for the heavier meal.
yeah,
And so I just love the freedom of being able to do that.
to switch them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Generally speaking, then satisfaction and hunger good, or as in not hunger good, but felt full, happy, satisfied with the meals. Very few cravings, very few things you felt like you were missing out on. Is I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think that's what we're saying.
Yeah. There
Yeah.
was times that I was hungry, but it was when you're in a weight loss stage in general, you need to be like okay with um feeling hunger and like
Hmm.
acknowledging hunger because that's what's going to teach you to listen to hunger cues versus like I feel a little peckish so I'm going to eat a full meal. But
Yeah.
like creating a little space to feel that hunger but not in a damaging way or like a
Mm.
punishment way, but like okay, like I am really hungry now. um does it make sense? I'm not trying to say it in a
No, I
like a
think it's a fantastic insight.
yeah, like not
Like a
abusive,
sweet
but
spot.
just
No,
yeah,
not. You don't want to get so hungry that you're going to go and eat something terrible, and we want to be careful that we're not promoting people getting absurdly hungry, absurdly ravenous here, and then not eating food. And that's not what we're doing, but we don't want to even flirt with that. But I entirely agree with you. I think conceptually there's this kind of quote unquote sweet spot, or we should try and find a sweet spot where you do almost let yourself experience some hunger to go, oh, for the first time in my bloody life, I understand what hunger actually feels like. I know
Yeah.
what this is, and that'll teach you, how to. You need to do some other work too, but that'll teach you. Okay, what would be an appropriate response to this level of hunger, and get you thinking about that, and sort of just understand when hunger is likely to come in your day, and how to program food intake around that, meals around that. If you're never experiencing hunger, I don't know. Do you ever really know? Do you ever really know when you are truly hungry? Like you say, do you ever pick up on the cues and the signals if you're not forced to feel that hunger? Well,
Right, if you're
naturally,
not
no.
forced to.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think you're
Yeah.
quite right. And there is always going to be some, like being in a calorie deficit is not easy. But my whole slim and sustain spiel, as you very well know, is but there are little hacks and there are little mechanisms that make it easier and make it more tolerable and diminish the chance of you getting really hungry. But you're still going to experience some, cravings and some maybe slight edge to your hunger every now and again in this weight loss process anyway. But hey, here's a bunch of stuff we can do that will make it more tolerable and less noticeable and less frequent. Mm. We talked about emotional eating, well, a lot throughout. How do you feel about your relationship with food now? What improvements have you seen?
Yeah, the emotional eating, like discovering that kind of decompressing eating was huge. And just learning to, like, what am I feeling? That was huge for me. But I think I also realized, like, kind of reflecting on this question, was that I'm not as fearful of food anymore because
Okay.
so like food isn't as emotionally charged as it used to be. So like I feel more neutral about food.
Hmm.
So like I can feel so like I love my like what is it? Stir fry. Is it I call it my peanut bowl. So like I have the air fried tofu. I've had all the broccoli that I love, the peanut sauce and the brown rice. And like I can eat that and feel so happy and feel full without feeling guilty.
Hmm.
Because I think before fullness was equated to doing something wrong, like fullness meant fat, like fullness meant weight gain. And I don't feel that anymore. If I feel full, I'm not going to expect myself to have like 5 more pounds on the scale. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm
So the
less,
right foods in the right quantities, fullness isn't a bad thing. That was something you had to learn, though.
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
Mm. Because if we were talking about you feeling full from ice cream, yeah, that would be different. That would
right.
be rightly you'd be concerned about. Oh my
But I think
goodness,
that's
what?
how I equated it before,
Yeah,
was that like,
there was no differentiation between the type of food causing the fullness in your mind.
right,
Yeah, you were just
yeah.
like fullness equals bad equals weight gain. Yeah.
And I don't like, I just feel less emotional about it, which frees me to actually feel the positive emotions. Like, I'm enjoying it. This is something I look forward to. This is comforting and like not in a twisted way comforting, but like it makes me happy.
No, but this
Um,
is abundant. This is a meal I enjoy, and it's big. And like,
yeah,
wow, that's cool. I can eat this and lose weight. I mean, that's pretty profound. Like, that's pretty cool.
yeah,
Mm,
yeah.
okay, so improvements in relationship with food, bit of weight loss, a bit of weight loss. I'm putting that mildly. Any other wins or breakthroughs that you noticed in the program?
Any other wins and breakthroughs?
What about
The
your
weekly,
fitness level?
yeah, um, yeah. You made me run.
Don't
um,
tell people that; they won't sign up.
yeah, it took a while. There was a lot of yeah, it was running towards the end.
But
Um,
do you feel glad you've done that, even if there was some reluctance there?
so proud,
Yeah.
like so proud. I was really resistant to it. I don't think I expressed to you how resistant I was,
I
but
believe it. A lot of
yeah,
people are. A lot of people struggle with it, but that's why we start with just the intervals and start small. And
loved the intervals. Like
mm,
the intervals were like what gave me faith that I could do it.
yeah,
Um,
I think that's the secret. You tell me to getting people into running is, hey, you're going to do 2 minutes of walking and 30 seconds of running, and you're going to do a couple of rounds of that, and then you get to go home. And then the next week we just adjust the interval slightly, and the next week, and then a couple of months time, you're doing a full run, and you're like, what the heck? Well, you tell me. But
Yeah. I'm like, that Ryan. You got me to do it.
sneaky
Yeah.
Dickens. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I already was physical before we started. I
Yeah.
walked. I loved walking. So like you telling me to walk was enjoyable. I already like had um part of being healthy for me is working on my stress. Like after cancer, I worked on my stress. Part of it is working on so that would be like mental health, and part of that is like just spiritual health, and then also part of that is the food. But like I had already known that moving my body aided in my mental health.
Yeah.
So I
You'd seen that connection previously. Yeah.
yes. So exercise to me was more under the mental health box than it was the physical health box. And so, like, it wasn't hard for me to combine the two because you kind of forced me into that. Like, you know, they're checking both boxes now, and that was okay. And I did like at home workouts a lot when my kids were younger, and so you doing that wasn't hard for me.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I'm very astonished you got me to run.
Well, thanks for your commitment to it, because
Yeah,
I think running is something people are scared of. People will do anything to not run, and I don't pick running for the fun of it. I probably make my program slightly less sellable by saying, hey, by the way, guys, at some point you have to run
yeah.
later on in the
Sorry.
program. Newsflash, but because it probably isn't as attractive in that way. If I just said, "Oh, you just have to do walking only in the program," I think maybe it would actually sell better. But I don't care. I think it's good for you, and I think it's an easy way to do an exercise of more intensity rather than going to spinning classes or Orange Theory or I don't know. There are other methods we can substitute. Occasionally with clients they have an injury, so we can substitute the run for something else, like swimming, something else. So there are other options. Um, Maybe you didn't know that, but I'm glad. But I think what you're saying is that you're glad I pushed you with that.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm a 40-year-old mom of four and I'm out running on the track. I mean, I'm not going quickly. You
yeah.
know, I
But
live
it's
on a
something.
military base. Those guys are
Yeah,
lapping me. But
yeah.
I'm doing it and I can feel like um I can feel the health of it. Like I can feel the heart rate. I can feel the muscles moving differently.
Hmm.
Like but it's also you're not out there with a stopwatch making sure I'm going a
Yes.
certain speed. Like it's tailored to what I can do. But I'm really
Yeah.
proud of myself. I never wanted to do that and I never thought I would.
Thought you
And
would. Yeah.
now I can.
Look
So
at
it's a
you
big
now.
deal.
Mm. How did you, this is important for busy moms watching this. How did you make all of this work with four kids, spinning all the plates that you do?
Yeah. Um, I'm not one that has the capacity to meal plan. But what I do instead is I just always make sure I'm doing something in the kitchen. So I'm in the kitchen a lot cooking for them, making them pasta or whatever. And so when I'm doing that, I'm also making sure I have broccoli ready. I one meal I'm doing making sure that I have broccoli. The next meal I'm making sure I have brown rice. Or I'm just like when I run out of something, I just prep it again. I prep bell peppers or I prep carrots or so I'm constantly um, replenishing my stock in the fridge.
Hmm.
So I could just open the fridge and see, okay, I've got tofu, brown rice ready, um, all my favorite veggies. I can easily just make a grain bowl. I don't have to think about it, you know?
So you never, tip number one being you never let the kitchen get too empty. That's just asking for
No,
trouble, isn't it?
never. Yeah,
With four
I
kids,
never
that's
do.
really asking for trouble. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good
And
advice.
I everything is so like the hummus is so simple. that I
Hmm.
can just whip it up on the spot, but I don't usually like to do that. And that's another thing I do. I could just combined our lives a little bit. The
Hmm.
hummus they eat is your hummus. The
Right.
chickpea salad that they eat is your chickpea salad.
Yes.
Like we did burrito bowls already all the time. So that wasn't hard to integrate. That's just mommy measures hers,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Um, we
Take
do,
your Put yours on the plate first, and then it's a free for
yeah,
all. Yeah.
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 Um, so that's just how I integrate. If I want to like if I want to eat beans, we're all eating beans,
Right.
which is something we do anyways. So um,
I think that's
I,
really important. I think creating the tip being not to steal this from you, but create as much overlap you can with your family's nutrition and your nutrition, and you'll be golden. And there'll be people
yeah,
watching this like, yeah, but my family don't like eating what I'm eating. And I always say they'll like something. They'll like something. If you can at least get 50% of both of
yeah,
your diets kind of integrated, that's something. That's making your life 50% easier in the kitchen.
right. I think the hummus is really good. So
Yeah.
anybody will love the hummus. And then um, but also even no matter who's eating what in the house, you can still always have something prepared for yourself that doesn't take organized like meal planning, but just you run out of brown rice, cook it right away.
Yeah.
You're out of your chopped, romaine, like get some more ready. And that was another thing too. I just had a routine uh list of vegetables in my head that every grocery pickup I did, I just added broccoli, added carrots, added
Right.
kale, added like
Just
I don't have to,
automatic. Yeah.
yeah, I don't have to think about it. Just add it, add tofu. Like,
Yeah.
and so always
The
make sure I
foods you're
have the soy
using
sauce.
regularly, you have to just keep ordering. Yeah.
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 And
Don't wait till they're out. Don't wait till you
no,
got none and then go, what am I going to eat today? Yeah.
no,
Ryan, what can I do from my plan today? Yeah. I've got no tofu. I've got no beans. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah,
planning ahead, thinking ahead, grocery shopping ahead of time, not when you need groceries. That's way too risky when you're trying to take care of not only your own meals, but four little whippersnappers.
yeah, yeah. So I just always, yeah, I guess think ahead. I always thought ahead.
Hmm.
And also like this probably touches on the satisfaction question, but I never forced myself to eat stuff I didn't like.
Right.
Like I always had stuff that I liked. So never felt like I was forcing myself to eat something gross. I ate what I like. I love broccoli, I love kale, I love carrots, and so that's what I stuck with. I
Mm.
don't like arugula. I didn't
Hmm.
buy arugula.
Yeah, and I think this is really important to say is I'm trying to think now. I don't think there's anything on my slim and sustain plans that I customize for my clients that I say you must eat this. I
No.
can't think of one ingredient because there's always another way around it. There's always another way to get those nutrients. There are multiple sources of omega-3 and 6s. There are many different types of dark leafy green. We just need to find the one you like the best. There are several different types of berries. Berries are amazing. But if you don't like berries or you don't like a certain type of berry, we can get everything in berries elsewhere. And I think that's really important to say. There's no must eat food. This goes back to the potato thing. Like, I'm not going to force you to only eat potatoes. There's lots of different healthy sources of carbohydrate. Many, many, many. Potatoes, wonderful, great for weight loss. But there's a bunch of other stuff too. So just having, without putting words in your mouth, just having enough freedom and flexibility within your meal plan, I think is probably important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's good advice to mums, parents, anyone at home that's trying to cook for other folks as well. Keep their own nutrition goals in mind, but cook for other people's preferences too. I feel like a good place to finish with you is to chat about overcoming limiting beliefs. It's been a theme. Um, Basically, what I want to ask is how the bloody hell, excuse my language, but how the bloody hell did you keep going, Lisa? You had a massive health scare, you know, being a busy mom. You had a bunch of potential excuses that no one would have judged you for, that presumably a lot of people in your social circle would have said, yeah, yeah, you're fine. You don't need to do this weight loss stuff. How did you keep going anyway? And why did you keep going? Why did you keep trying?
Yeah, that's a good question.
That's a big question.
I Why did I keep going? I knew that if my cancer does come back, I would accept it. I would fight like hell again. But I also know that I can do everything right now to fight, right? Um,
Do you mean to minimize the risk?
right, minimize the
Yeah.
risk. And um, I was just not going to let. We did have a scare. So one thing when during
Yeah.
our time together, I did have a scare, and that was the only time I ever felt like giving up. And so I do remember you saying, like, if the worst happens, because I was kind of like, why, if this comes back, like, my
What's
whole
all the
life
work
is
for?
gone. Yeah,
Yeah.
not only is my whole life changed again, but did we waste our time? And I remember you really distinctly saying, we did not waste our time. If the worst happens, God forbid, we didn't waste our time because of everything that we learned and built on. So what keeps me going is um, just knowing that what I'm doing is meaningful, that this is meaningful, that it's worth it, um, that my health and my family are worth it, that um, reaching a goal that I've always wanted to reach and never been able to reach, like, it's worth it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Good answer. Just push through anyway, and just, I think when you badly want something, you're still gonna have those sort of very human moments where you think, "Oh, do I really need this? Do I really want this? What's this all for? Is all the work worth it?" And obviously that'll be really enhanced by having a health scare, something that you'd worked so hard previously to get rid of as well. Like, that's not a trivial, well, I can't speak from experience, but that can't be a trivial thing, Lisa. That would have terrified the living daylights out of me. So
right.
you could have quit there. You could have quit. I didn't want you to, and I kind of feel like I wouldn't have let you, but you could have just blocked
No,
me and
you wouldn't have let
disappeared.
me. You wouldn't have
Um,
let me.
you could have tried to flake out and disappear on me, but you pushed through. And I think you went for the scan and you got the all clear, and obviously that was huge relief. But for a moment there, it's like, why am I being so strict? Why am I being so disciplined? Why don't I just eat some chocolate again? Why don't I just chill with all this diet stuff?
Yeah.
And I remember my point to you being, yeah, but when you get through, if the worst happens, when you get through it again, when you get through the treatment again, you'll have all this muscle memory, quote unquote, like we spoke about
Mm-hmm.
earlier, of kind of weight loss, figuratively, of weight loss. You'll know the path. It'll be easier next time. And we're not just going to assume that you're going to gain all this weight in the treatment again, like last time. We're not just going to accept that that's the inevitable script. Um, Good for you. Inspiring story. And thank you very much for all your time and insight. And I know people at home are going to find this very, very valuable. And if you are watching this at home and you want results like my clients get on Slim and Sustain, just fill out the form at the link down below or at veganslimandsustain.com, and I'll be in touch with all the details. Thank you, Lisa. Is there anything else you want to share?
Um, that you were really kind to me during that time, and
Stop
I
it.
appreciate.
No,
I
carry
really
on. Come
do.
on.
I do appreciate it, and thank you for being my therapist, my priest, my guru, my coach.
Sounds like a cult. Slim and Sustain cult. Yeah.
No, you were
The avocado toast cult. Yeah.
yeah. No, I just appreciate you, and it was great, and I'm happy to leave you, but also gonna miss you.
Yeah. Do you feel ready? Do you
I
feel like
do
you've got
feel
there?
ready.
Yeah,
Yeah. I don't
I
think
think
I
that's a
would have
nice.
been ready the first go, but I needed that extension and I feel really ready.
Okay, well, thank you very much for all your time.